All right, Peter. Peter, where'd you grow up? Where are you from originally?
I was born in Queens, New York.
What was your family like growing up?
My family was an Italian family. My mother cooked from scratch. She sewed all my clothes. My father was in a printing business, a lithographer in New York. We moved out to California when I was the middle of 7 years old. And he brought part of his business out to Los Angeles when nobody was here. When you could buy a house in Woodland Hills up in the mountains for $35,000, and that was an expensive price. You know, it's like in 1964, which is an old time. The valley was pretty empty, and all these houses for sale. Imagine that, a $15,000 house is average, and now you got to pay, $850,000, just to get a shack.
That's right.
Inflation. Yeah.
How was your childhood?
Tough. I have Tourette syndrome. I've had it since I was 7, so nobody knew what it was back then, and they misdiagnosed. The Catholic Church wanted to give me an exorcism, which is psychotic.
That's the solution.
But my father was a very interesting, man, because when he grew up, I remember he used to have cigarettes rolled up in his sleeve, and he used to smoke 2 packs a day, and he wasn't a drinker, but he had like a 36-inch waist and like 11-inch arms, and this Italian looked like he looked like De Niro in his face. It's pretty funny. But when he hit 39 years old, he quit smoking. He went to a gym called Vince's Gym, and it was a very famous gym in Studio City, right by the studios where all the actors went, and which is interesting. That Rich Man, Poor Man series, all those actors, William Smith, and these people were over there. So he goes to this place in 3.5 years. He comes out 15.5-inch arms, 33-inch waist, chugging vitamins, studying. Whatever made him shift, he just shifted completely. And so I was a guinea pig. He was using all kinds of vitamins on me to try to get things calmer, niacin, vitamin B12, and all kinds of things, which, he always, tried to do it. He always thought, he said, you can beat this with your mind, which I believe I can, but at the time, nobody knew what it was. It was like unheard of.
What does your Tourette's look like when it flares up?
Oh, man. Tourette's is it's the most complicated neurological disorder in the world. And it's a biogenetic disorder where you have motor tics. Sometimes you can move. You have uncontrollable urges in certain parts of your body. And it's like you have a horrible itch on your nose, and your hands are tied behind your back, and you can't scratch it. And so it's so uncomfortable until you release it, and then those tics can happen every 3 seconds, every 10 minutes. So when I was a kid, it was really difficult because I didn't know what was going on. I thought I was an alien. I didn't know why I was, different than other, kids or other human beings. And why did I have to, grow up like this? But it gave me a lot of empathy for human beings, because I had to learn that if you want people, to treat you with kindness and consideration and empathy, you must also practice that. When you're a kid, you don't know that. I'm just angry. What do you don't know what I'm feeling. Then they're making fun of you all the time. And, I got in fights when I was a kid, and just because, of the anger, because it's like someone putting a vice grip on your neck, and they're squeezing it all day long, and you're uncomfortable in your own skin. So that was a very, difficult time until I started getting about over 18 and started participating in massive amounts of sports, boxing, kickboxing. I was a baseball player since I was 9. I was a pole vaulter in college, and I went to California Lutheran University, and then I went to some screenwriting stuff at UCLA. And
today's video is sponsored by BetterHelp. I work every day. I don't take sick days. Some days everything falls into place, and other days it just doesn't. We've all been there. Life has its ups and downs, and that's just how it goes. When things feel heavy, having the right support makes all the difference. A therapist can help untangle external pressures from internal thoughts, turning stress into personal strength. Therapy is a great tool for learning how to process emotions, build healthy boundaries, and develop ways to cope with social anxieties and everyday pressures. It can also help you set goals that truly fit your life. Getting started is simple. You fill out a short questionnaire online, and BetterHelp will match you with one of more than 30,000 licensed therapists with diverse specialties and backgrounds. If the match isn't right, it's no problem. You can switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. And the best part, you don't have to wait for the right time. Any day can be the start of something better. So if you're feeling stuck, click on the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/softwhite-underbelly to get 10% off your first month of therapy. Because taking care of yourself isn't about waiting for perfect. It's about showing up for yourself every day. Thank you for watching. And now back to the video.
Then learning to cope and deal with people. What I really had learned from diving into the Tourette's thing is that you really have to practice the same empathy that you want to other people, because the frequency works that way. You can't expect someone that knows nothing about you and he sees you moving all over the place, and they think you're on cocaine or on certain kinds of drugs. And that's not the case at all. I was a very, good prominent athlete, and I love to be physical because it helped alleviate a lot of the symptoms from being so physical and exhausting my body so much that I would actually feel, a lot better. And then here's the godsend. Here's how God works. So there's no power but God. And when I was 13, I had an inclination. Every time I ate candy, my body used to be like an earthquake. And I said, well, what if I decide not to eat any candy? Because every day, I used to walk to the liquor store to sports. I used to have an RC Cola and some pork rinds. I remember when I was a kid, I used to do that every day, or Lay's potato chips, which is, obviously horrible for you. But so one day, one of my friends just got water. Not a candy bar. He used to buy Clark bars, Reese's peanut butter cups, and all these candy that was good. But when I stopped, I noticed that the symptomology I had went down 20%. It was pretty prominent. Wow. So after about a week, I said, let me test this out. So I ate a half a Clark bar. Within 2 minutes, I was jumping out of my skin, and I said, I was so mad. I said, I was happy at the same time. I drank a bunch of water and said, not going to do that again. So here's God's protection. Because of that, I really never ate sugar because it affected my body. Caffeine affects you the same way, so I don't do that. So I learned about, whole organic foods, and really you are what you eat, and, putting, things in your body that are not processed and that don't turn into massive amounts of sugar, because sugar is the biggest destroyer of your cells. So this came from all these realizations is like, even though it was very difficult for me as a child, by going through these things, it actually protected me, my health. And I didn't know it at the time, but the way I eat and the way I operate is very peaceful and transformative, and it's basically using the medicines of the jungle of the Amazonian rainforest, where most of the real medicines come from, to use, for, healing modalities, which I think is, very, which is very, very, very important. And by learning, these things, I learned from my father, if you want to really understand something, study it. So I remember when I was a kid, he was giving me newsletters, something called Dow Theory with Richard Russell. He was the #1 finance newsletter guy in the world. And wanted to get me to read it for 6 months, and I just kept brushing them off. And then finally, I read one letter, and I called him back. I said, hey, can you send me one more of those letters? He goes, okay. And then the next day I said it again. And he goes, I go, Dad, this is really good. He goes, that's what I've been trying to tell you for years, you schmoo. And he called me a schmoo, and I was laughing. And so I started studying. I had obsessive compulsive disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. And it gives you the ability, when you study something, you can't look at it one time. It gets mathematical. You got to look at it in sequences of 3, and it's almost for the same amount of time before you move your head, and you keep looking at it and looking at it, and this obsession, this cycle goes on and on and on. So when you're studying something, it's like, wow, you get really good. The good news is you get really educated and you assimilate a lot of knowledge. The negative side is it's freaking exhausting. It's exhausting to do that. So, and then I got, I did an Entertainment Tonight interview because I ended up getting in the film business, and as an actor, and first did commercials, but as a big time stunt performer, and I ended up doubling actors like Sylvester Stallone, Don Johnson, Al Pacino, and Robert De Niro, and ended up making, a bunch of capital. And then I did a couple of interviews, and I mentioned Tourette syndrome because every time I went on in Hollywood, every time I went out somewhere, I got accused of being on cocaine. It was tough to get an agent because, what are you doing? Are you okay? Yeah, I'm fine. I'm just hyperactive. I used to say anything just to avoid the subject. I'm just hyperactive. That's all. It's been that way my whole life. Until Entertainment Tonight interviewed me. I did a film called 29th Street and The Highlander with Christopher Lambert and Sean Connery, the second one. And they were interviewing me, and I started talking about Tourette's. He goes, really? I just said, hey, I have Tourette syndrome, and really difficult at that time when I did that because I felt like I was coming out of the neurological closet. I never actually said. I was afraid. I was so afraid to say I have Tourette syndrome. I can't help it. I do. And when that happened, a lot of people, I got contacted by a lot of people. They just embraced that honesty. I mean, I finally was able to go in an office and say, no, I have Tourette's. It's a neurological disorder. And because people are afraid about what they don't understand. And what I love is to always to flip that, because the frequency you omit shall be returned unto you. And these kinds of issues, they make you grow, and they make you look at the mirror inside, because the cleaner your temple is on the inside, if you honor, respect, love, and are kind and considerate to yourself, you will be that way to other human beings. And when other human beings throw anger or frequency at you, pray for them, because they're suffering. You don't know what's in their trauma, because their trauma, is their own. It has nothing to do with you. And most beings are walking projections. They project all their stuff onto you. And then we, the people, if you're not self-aware, you take it personally. And it's not personal. It has nothing to do with you. And that tells you that if you feel that way and you become a reaction, that means you really need to work on your emotional intelligence or self-awareness. Because if I was a great surfer, and I knew I was a great surfer, if someone come, hey Pete, you suck at surfing, you can't ride a 4-foot wave, and said whatever, and called me any derogatory names, if you know who you are, basically it's thank you for sharing. Doesn't mean anything. It would be like if someone walked up to you and said, I know you're 7'2" and you've been tall all your life. How does it feel, to not be able to walk in many places or sit in cars? And if you were 5'10", you would look at that person like he has 3 heads. It doesn't resonate with you. So when you become self-aware, when people throw their stuff at you, you have a new way of listening, Because if you listen to them powerfully, that you actually recreate them. You're actually being a mirror and shining their stuff that they just threw at you right back onto them. Because the greatest gift that you have in the world is the gift of your listening. You have a little kid coming up to you, hey, and many people they look away. Oh, yeah, it's good, and they pat him on the back and walk around and don't pay attention. You leave that kid empty when he doesn't feel valuable or knowledgeable. But that kid comes up to you and says something. Hey, I really like that the way you hit that baseball, and then you step down. Really? You want to learn how to do that? You like that? What do you like about it? And you actually engage and give that kid 100% of your focus. Because, the lesson is, and you leave that kid feeling empowered because he matters. And when you're shaping, in your youth, it's the gift of listening, something paying attention to you, is so important, for development. And then, I was a national spokesman for the Tourette Syndrome Association. I spoke with a guy named Dr. Oliver Sacks at the World's Fair in New York, which was pretty incredible. Robin Williams played him in a movie called The Awakenings, Awakening the Awakening. But, in doing that, because there's so many kids, they go on and all they give them is massive amounts of pharmacology, and it screws them up. Because when they first gave me pharmacology, I couldn't get off the couch. I could hardly breathe, and I was drooling. After 3 weeks, my mother threw it down the toilet. And I think there needs to be a little pharmacology, but nutrition, exercise, and vitamin B12, meditation, there's so many other things to this pie that kids should be aware of. And then across the United States, a lot of these kids have horrible doctors. They don't know where to go. And they just, it's difficult for a kid to go to school and pay attention if he's on all that, pharmacology.
And your teenage years were, tell me about the rest of your childhood.
My teenage years, once I got into sports, changed my whole life. I mean, I played all the Little League baseball up to the police leagues and played in high school and then became a pole vaulter because I was a really good baseball player and made a lot of, all these all-star teams. And all of a sudden I go to high school in Los Angeles, I get cut, and all my friends that I played on these all-stars, what'd you cut him for? What are you, nuts? Because the coach didn't understand what I was doing because I was moving. I would move a little bit and then when the pitcher wound up, I have this beeline focus. I wouldn't move a muscle. They didn't understand that. I could move in the field. Once the pitcher wound up, I was laser focused. So one thing about Tourette's is good as you have this uncanny ability to focus for periods of time. Sometimes it can be 5-8 minutes, but and it's laser focus. It's a lot more than a normal person. It's like that kind of I call it a disability. It's an ability. So it enables you to do that. So I was trying to find my way and figure out what I wanted to do. First, I wanted to be a professional baseball player, and that didn't work out. But I love the sport. It's my favorite sport in the world. And then when I got cut, I said, I'm going to run track. I don't know anything about it. So I looked at this guy taking a steel pole in a sawdust pit. I want to do that. And I first vaulted on steel poles. Boy, was that difficult with sawdust pit. And then we got a fiberglass pole, the second half of the year after I was in, ninth grade. So that was fun. I actually really loved that. And I remember I tied for first place in high school when I was a senior. It's like 13 feet, and that was way back when, which is pretty good at the time when I was when I graduated high school in 1975. So now you got girls that are pole vaulting, 16 feet, which is, I go, wow. I just go like that. Mondo Duplass, 20 feet, 6 inches. I mean, that is like a Martian ability. I mean, people don't understand how difficult that event is. And, my hat's off to everyone and, everybody that trained, because I used to love doing that. It gave me a sense of belonging. And sports, what really gave me a sense of belonging was the camaraderie I got from, sharing athletic fields and athletic events with other human beings, which is really was a blessing for me, having Tourette's, because I felt like an outcast my entire life. When I was young, I felt like, who wants to hang out with somebody that, moves? And so regarding frequency in relationships, which is what sometimes I find interesting and so difficult at times, because it makes you look in the mirror. Because often, in my experience, I think the biggest issue on the planet in personal relationships is a lack of self-esteem. Because if you could be the most brilliant, successful in the material world, and if you don't feel that way, the energy you're going to put out is like, I'm going to pick somebody who supports how I feel. So often then you'd pick somebody that doesn't respect or regard, your kindness, consideration, or maybe your love and your support. Instead, they always challenge that, and then you always have to come back and fight for who you are. It's like a feedback loop where you continue to fight and you continue to fight. And it's like, wait a minute, you have to turn around and look in the mirror and realize your own divinity. Because when you realize that you're divine, nothing else matters. It's like, if someone doesn't get it, no problem. Have a nice day, they're the door. And all these talk about, narcissistic behavior. Well, if you going out with somebody with narcissistic behavior, you have those same qualities in yourself, or you wouldn't attract it. So frequency works that way. So, I had a rock and roll time. Somebody I thought was very conscious, and nope, it was like having a relationship with myself. I, me. And it doesn't, and when people are like that, it's okay. People are put together to learn lessons. There's no mistakes in your life. There's only lessons you learn. But, the most fascinating thing is when, people are speaking and they're actually diving in and trying to pick you apart, and you're doing the opposite. All you're doing is trying to be so kind, and the more you do, the more they take. They don't appreciate it, and then you have to turn around and go, look in the mirror. It's my fault. I'm allowing this. What is in me that is not realizing the contribution, the heart, the love, the kindness, the generosity? If that really resonates, and you're going, well, why don't I think enough of myself to pick somebody that gets that? So I find this a great tool to grow for self-reflection. And most people blame everybody else. You pissed me off. You got me angry. I did this because what you did. Okay, so basically you're saying you're a slave, and whatever that person says or does, they own you. Because they said this, you pissed me off. Well, wait a minute. You said something, and I reacted with anger. That's more authentic speaking. You said something, and I got angry. Basically, I chose to get angry. Because when people all over the world, they say, always shun accountability. And when you actually claim accountability, you take your spiritual power back. Because anytime you're accountable, I'm accountable for my failures. I'm accountable for my successes. And I understand that failure is a great barometer, because failure gives you a barometer and a guide as a floor what you need to do to be successful. People go, oh, I failed. So what? The most brilliant people in the world, scientifically and otherwise, they fail at everything. But they got persistence. And when you keep being persistent, like a water dropping on a brick until a hole goes through it, that's where the magic is. Everybody wants to be around people that, oh, we're successful, but there's no elevator to the top. You got to take the stairs. You have to go through a process to do it. And you have a lot when you accumulate wisdom. But when you're dealing with frequency of people, my God, it always goes back to you. Because when you have the most empowering relationships, the relationships are based upon you, your love and acceptance for the divinity that you have, the sacred soul that you have, the divine mission you have, and the kindness, consideration, compassion, and empathy that you have. And this world needs empathy. God forbid, with everything that's going on in the world today, where is the empathy? Where is the honor for each human life? Each human life is sacred. There is a divine order to things on this planet. And the way that I believe they can make a difference is to understand, to be kind and considerate, even when it's not given back, and understand if someone's angry, he may have had a fight with his wife, some horrible thing may have happened, you have no idea, or he had some trauma when he was young, you have no idea what he or she is going through. And if they just lash out without a reason, without any kind of a reason, because they're just disassociating anything that someone says to give an excuse so they can, their excuse to unload their trauma. You have to pray for that. Just hold space and pray for that individual because they're suffering, and really, rather than getting angry, because you wouldn't want to be in their position where you're suffering. But if someone's doing it, the best way to deal with them is really, to pray for them. Because if you stand and hold space calmly, without losing calm, without losing patience, without losing control, those situations get diffused. And then when you want to walk around and in business and in your personal life, if you're dealing with, again, relationships, you can pick and choose who you want to be in business with. When you meditate and you lift your frequency, and you may use mantras, or I'm a divine child of God, eu sou filho de Deus, and you continue to give yourself affirmations, and you continue to give yourself positive affirmations. Because, really, capital, I learned money never made me happy. It never made me happy. Love made me happy. Love makes me happy. And the more you show it towards yourself and clean your own temple out, and then you can project that onto other people. Now, no matter where you are, you're going to walk peacefully, and that's what the kind of people you're going to attract, this divine flow of energy. And when people understand that, they talk about most people are they walk around, or kids, with a cell phone like this. So there's no human interaction. There's no, connection to nature, no connection to God, just constantly looking at some stimulation, which I think is actually maybe by design, but it's not good for relationships. Personal relationships are person to person, people in a room together, people gathering together. We're tribal people, and that is, by our design. We weren't meant to be robots. We were meant to be, to love freely, express ourselves passionately, create art, beautiful kinds of art, because the highest form of frequency, you have art, you have athletics, but you have beautiful art. I mean, you see some brilliant symphony, some unbelievable singer, some high-level gymnast that you go, wow, that's a Martian. I don't know how that guy's doing that. How do you do 3 flips and a twist over a high bar? I'm going, huh? Incredible humans. And more of it. It's so empowering. And anytime I've been down, this may sound crazy to you, but I turn on the TV and watch Simon Cowell, that everybody's whatever, somebody's got talent, or America's got talent, Britain's got talent. And I watch these singers, these kids coming from nowhere, just killing it. I'm going, and the frequency just rises. It's just connected to that, they're in the flow, they're in the zone. So many people that if they choose to be in the zone and to practice, their art and to get acknowledged for it, I think that's a very, very important part of life. And art plays a brilliant role to inspire people to do any commerce that they wish to do. There is a divine connection between humanity and nature. It's symbiotic. Nature is out of balance. You see, when nature is out of balance, habitats are destroyed. Humanity is out of balance. You see senseless wars, killings, and damage and destruction to Mother Earth, who is a living, breathing entity. When nature comes into balance, or man comes back into balance, Mother Nature and man will come back into balance. It's similar if for surfers out there, if you surfed a wave and you're in the zone, or you're skiing down a mountain just at your level before you'd fall, but just at the height of your level, so there's nothing that exists in the world but you and the mountain. Not your wife, your girlfriend, your business, nothing. You're just dancing with the mountain. That is an exhilarating feeling. That is probably the most nirvana that I've ever felt. And when I was, doing stunts, when I, jumped off buildings up to 75 feet, when you're in the air, it's like, I guess, skydiving. And when you're in the air, you're just sitting there going, like, whoosh, wow. You're just fully present. That feeling of being fully present is so incredible. It's phenomenal. And it's like I wish, and I pray that other people in certain aspects, or you may be an artist and just paint the perfect, whatever it is your painting just turned out like stellar, in the zone. You were just in the zone. Anything, or hitting a baseball on the sweet spot, all these different athletics, or if you create a new business model that would help people in business, anything like that, in the zone is good. And it's important to mind your frequency, because frequency is everything. And then the people around you will start stacking up to support your same frequency, because we can change the world by moving energy. And that's what meditation and prayer does. You move energy. And when enough people are doing that synchronicity, then it moves energy. And when you move energy, that promotes action. So there's a lot more, to this universe, to doing that. And when I have been in Brazil or in the United States, I embarked on a plant medicine journey, and for the last 11 years, and had been drinking single plant medicines, or ayahuasca. And for someone who had Tourette's, dealing with the energy of how my body moved, and understanding after the first time I drank, I basically said, God exists extremely powerfully, and the force that you're under, the same divine frequency of creation, is something that changed my entire life. It changed my entire view of everything. It's like we're living, an illusion. The only thing important is unconditional divine love and forgiveness. And that doesn't happen enough. If people get angry in this world today, they have a difference of opinion. You like chocolate, I like vanilla. They call each other names. They want to kill each other. That's not humanity. That's not who we were. That's not by design who we are. And each human being has to practice kindness and compassion and empathy. And we're all connected. The plants, the animals, the birds, the matter that's on this planet, Mother Earth, it's all a frequency. And when there is war and violence, answered with war and violence, it's only an explosion, and it manifests. You have to go into forgiveness when that happens. You have to go into forgiveness and stand in justice and be like one hand clapping. Should be no resistance. It always should be one hand clapping. And these higher dimensions of frequency is a very important study. And what the world doesn't seem to understand is they worship like idols, material things. And I'm not speaking against abundance. Abundance is awesome if you're using it for the right reason, to be of service to people, because there's no greater gift of mankind and women to be of service. And if you're actually being of service, you're really making a phenomenal contribution. And I would challenge anyone to really think, if they have ever done something for free out of their own heart for somebody just because you wish to help, or someone was in need and you just did that, you don't need anybody to look at you. You don't need any acknowledgement. You just did it. It's only you and God knows. And what the people on the planet, or half of them, don't understand, that this universe, this world, this galaxy is ruled by God. And if they don't atone to divine law, there will be more strife on this planet when they start coming under the rule of God. And I believe the angels are amongst us now, raising up. There are beautiful angels speaking the truth to this dark forces. And I am so encouraged to see so many of them all over the world speaking truth to this illusion. And it's very important, because I see in this age of Aquarius all darkness being illuminated. 4 years ago, $3.6 billion the Vatican paid for abusing children. That's the first time I saw it. From all the problems that they have in Congress, to all the lies that have been told, all this light has been turned on to this, darkness with these, Diddy Epstein, or all these crazy cases. All light is being shown. So this is a grand awakening of the consciousness on this planet. It's an awakening for every human being, and all you have to do to tap in, practice meditation on a daily basis, and have gratitude. I'm grateful to you for being here. I'm grateful that I can express my heart, and that I pray that some of the difficulties that I went through will inspire others, because it's not always an easy road, and it's always good to acknowledge vulnerabilities, and I have felt vulnerable a lot, in my life with the traumas that I went through, and I'm on a path now to continually go through passages and commune with God and go into complete deep forgiveness. And everyone on this earth has to forgive anyone they hold resentment towards. Because any resentment you hold between you and another being, you hold between you and God. You got to set yourself free, let yourself go, and start practicing integrity, loving yourself. The more you love yourself, the more you can give it away. If you can't love yourself, you'll never have a relationship, give it away. If you're not honorable with yourself, how are you going to be honorable in business? If you're not honorable, you won't be honorable in business. So you have a choice. Money isn't the end-all be-all. The people that are with you, that support being of service to humanity and doing things that would actually help people, or feed poor people, or house poor people, or create clean water, anything that you need to do, this country, other countries, even if it's $1, it is the intention, within the intention that speaks the truth. There is a way that we will be changing this world around. So, we're living in harmony with each other and nature. And that's why I'm on this planet, and to protect Mother Earth, the ecosystem. It's the rainforest. And it's not climate change, and then the climate's always changing, and they put all these things out. It's the ecosystem. Plants, animals, birds, trees, insects, they're being extincted at alarming rates. And when we go back into nature, you have to understand each being has a purpose on this planet. Without trees, how will we breathe? Without water, this divine order is giving us everything we need to survive, but we have free will, so we have to exercise it wisely. And if you want to have a world where people actually care about each other and take care of each other and stop killing each other, you have to raise up your frequency and understand there's a much more powerful force that is control of this game. And really be careful, because your actions will dictate the reactions of other people. Lastly, the people that think they're self-aware really have to get this. Point is that if they react and their actions are mindless because they're just blindly reacting to what someone has said, which you see all the time in many situations in personal relationships or the news, they're owned. That's what true slavery is. True slavery is not taking accountability, because no one can upset the peace in my spirit. I am the master of my universe. No matter what you say, or not you do unless you physically try to harm me, I am the master of my own spirituality and my own human condition. So anytime if someone says things you don't like and you react, you have to go, that's an opportunity to heal. Look in the mirror, because that quality that you can't stand in them, you have it in yourself somewhere, someplace, sometime in your life. You have to examine your conscience, find out where that trauma was, suss out the situation, forgive yourself, and when you complete that, when that situation happens again, you will not react, because once you heal yourself, it's a very important process of forgiveness.
All right. Peter, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Cool.
All right. Thank you. When I was designing the first Soft-White Underbelly book, I realized that there were so many great portraits that weren't going to make it into that book. They just wouldn't fit. And once I saw how well that first book sold, I knew I'd have to design a second book. This second book is finally ready to ship. Like the first one, this book has a collection of some of the best portraits from Soft-White Underbelly, accompanied by a quote from that person's interview. This book features another group of Rebecca portraits, as well as a collection of color images of the Whitaker family, and plenty of others. You can order yours for $125 or $150 for a signed copy at softwhiteunderbelly.org. Again, like the first book, once this book is sold out, I will not be printing more of them. The portraits are what Soft-White Underbelly is all about, and these two books contain the best of all that work. Thank you for watching.